Hey, Wonderhussy here, just wandering around the woods in a little tiny town called Calistoga, California. Now, you maybe heard of Calistoga before. It's kind of famous for, well, a couple different things. One, it's known for its mineral water, so you've probably seen like bottled Calistoga water. And two, well, I guess those same mineral waters are said to have healing properties. And there's also hot springs around here. So there's a lot of like mineral baths and hot spring retreats. Anyway, there's one other thing that's interesting about Calistoga, and that's what I'm wandering around here today. And that is this old pioneer cemetery. I've been wanting to come check this place out for a while. I've driven by it several times, but for whatever reason, never had time to stop. But today I left my mom's house this afternoon. I'm headed over into the Central Valley of California to Chico to help a friend who's about to have knee surgery. I'm going to stay with him while he recovers. So while I was on my way, I passed right by this cemetery anyway, and I thought, let me stop in and take a look and check it out. Now, unfortunately, the cemetery is right by what's, well, a pretty busy road nowadays. So the ambiance is, well, not the best. And secondly, it's a nice, bright, sunny day, beautiful blue sky, summertime. I mean, I drove by this place in the winter and it's all like foggy and drippy, and all the moss on all the tombstones is all gothic gloomy. Well, it's kind of hard to be gothic gloomy when the sun's out and it's such a beautiful day, but hey, we'll do our best. Anyway, the reason I'm here and what interests me is, well, I am interested in, it's a pioneer cemetery, right? So there's a lot of old, pioneers buried here. If you guys watched my Donner Party series, all those videos I made about the Donner Party last summer, there's supposed to be at least 2 members of the Donner Party buried in this cemetery. So I thought it might be worth a quick stop here, get out, stretch my legs a little bit, look around, see if I can find any tombstones that I recognize the names on. Now, I did stop when I first walked in at the bottom of the hill. There's, one of those signs that's like shows where all the names are of all the graves. And, well, as usual, I didn't do all my research before getting here, so I don't remember which members of the Donner Party were buried here. Nobody by the last name of Donner. I checked the sign. There's no Donners here, but I don't know. I just kind of thought it might be more fun to wander around the graveyard for a while and see if I remember any of the history I learned last summer. I was pretty familiar with the names of most of the party members back then. Here it is almost a year later, though, and, well, that stuff tends to fly out the window. You know how it is. I guess I have what they call CRS. Can't remember beep. I'm sure some of you can sympathize. But, I don't know. I guess I'll spend like 15 minutes wandering around, and then if I really can't find anyone, then I'll go back and, well, I do have cell signal here, so I'll check, I'll Google it online, I'll figure it out, and then I'll go check the signboard. And we will see some graves, guaranteed, belonging to members of the Donner Party today. All right, let's go. Now, I gotta be careful too because, well, a lot of these graves are real overgrown. You can see there's like a lot of oak trees, madrone trees, they're all mossy, and then this, whatever brambles are growing all over the ground. Could be a lot of rattlesnakes hiding in there. And I was just driving, so I'm wearing my flip-flops. So we gotta be careful where we step. But look at this little grave. This right off the bat, the first one I focused in on, Little Alice. That's all it says. Doesn't say her last name, when she was born, when she died. Nothing else about her, but Little Alice. Gosh, that almost seems more like a grave you would see in a pet cemetery than a human cemetery. Okay, and these graves here, or these headstones, are so weathered. I mean, this is just a wooden plank that, well, they didn't even really carve into it. Looks like they just painted on it. George Turner, 1884 to 1908. Okay, well, he was much too young to have been in the Donner Party. So that tells me we're not quite in the right part of the cemetery. We need to go to where the really old graves are. Let's go see what's over here. There's a stand of some pretty old looking tombstones here. But yeah, see what I mean about these pathways are all grown over. You think there'd be like some kind of ladies social club that would maintain this place, I mean, even if the graveyard itself is overgrown, you think there'd at least be people who would come out and maintain these Donner Party members' graves, because they're kind of like historically significant. So that's my guess, is maybe we'll see a grave out here that's really well taken care of, and that'll tip us off. Here's this guy. Emmett Bentley died in 1887. Okay, so that's pretty old, but that's still not old enough to be Donner Party. I mean, the Donner Party crossed the plains in, oh gosh, I already forgot. I think it was like 1846, 1847. So let's just say the average age of the party members was 20, because there was a lot of kids in the party. So we're looking for graves of people that were born in like 1826-ish. But it sure does look cool. You know, like, first of all, they used to really know how to make a gravestone back in the day with all these like flowers and angels and stuff and ornate carvings. They don't do that much anymore. It's kind of depressing. And then secondly, the fact that it's fairly damp climate here, I mean in the winter, and all that moss and stuff growing all over these, just really lends quite a bit of ambiance. Oh, look at this one in the middle here. Oh, this was his dad, the guy we just looked at, Emmett's dad. Daniel Bentley was born in 1825. So see, he would have been just the right age to be in the Donner Party. He would have been about 21 years old when they crossed the plains. Unfortunately, I don't remember there being any Daniel Bentley. I feel like it's a woman. I think, gosh, I read a book about the Donner Party when I was researching my video, and I feel like there was a woman named Sarah. Gosh, Sarah something, and I think she's buried here. Oh, look at Jerry Clare. He was a Marine. And look, somebody left a bottle of vodka on his grave. Okay, it's a bottle of Kirkland brand vodka, which is a Costco vodka. So I'm gonna say Jerry here was a very frugal and practical man with great taste. Okay, gosh, there's not even like walkways to get to some of these graves, so I know it's considered bad luck to walk on a grave, but there's no other way for me to get to this other one here. Sorry, Pauline. I don't mean to be disrespectful. But what is this? Thomas J. Hopkins. He was born in 1835, so he's the right age, but that name doesn't sound familiar. Okay, here we go. Look at this. Lovina Cyrus. Born 1834. I feel like there was somebody named Lovina in the Donner Party, and she might have had a different last name, and then she married, because she was born in 34. She would have only been like 11 years old at the time of their crossing. I like what it says on Lovina's grave though at the bottom. She hath done what she could. I mean, well, that's all any of us can do. Oh gosh, this part of the cemetery is so overgrown with plants. I don't even know how I'm gonna get through. Real careful. Snakes coming through. Beautiful flowers though. Wildflowers growing all over these graves. Nourished by the, well, you know what. Look, these flowers are growing right over this little grave. No one will ever know who's buried here. Reinecke. Doesn't sound familiar. Look at this guy. John Brulhart, native of Switzerland. Well, he wasn't old enough. But it is interesting how many German and Swiss were among the early settlers out here. You know, like Sutter from Sutter's Fort, he was from Switzerland. This guy's the right age. Says he was born in Indiana, 1837. George Doss. But again, the name just doesn't sound familiar from my Donner Party readings. Wow, look at this old gal. Susan Reed Boyce lived from 1813 to 1907, almost 100 years. She was in her 90s. Wow. Good for her. You go, Sue. Oh, look at this little guy. These always make me sad. Randolph, kind of an unusual spelling of Randolph W. Roaming, born June 16th, 1902, died May 7th, 1903. Not even a year old. Poor little baby buried here. Okay, wow. This lady was probably real cool because look, well, her name was Anna L. Dementi, and somebody put 2 bottles of wine on her grave. Love it, Anna. Love your style. R.I.P. and cheers. Oh, look, it says here there's a sign hanging over the gate when you come in that the cemetery was donated, or I guess maybe the sign was donated, by Native Daughters of the Golden West, Calistoga Parlor number 145. I guess a parlor number is what they call like a chapter, so this is like the Calistoga chapter. Well, you'd think these ladies could maintain the graveyard a little bit. I mean, I don't know what else they're doing. And also, I've never heard of this. I mean, I've heard of the Daughters of the Revolutionary War, which I think to be a member of that society, you have to have had an ancestor that was actually in I think that actually fought in the Revolutionary War. Native Daughters of the Golden West. I don't know what the membership criteria for that is. I mean, I guess you have to have ancestry going back a certain number of years in California. I don't know, man. Let me see, my grandma, I just found out that my grandma's, on my mom's side, my grandma's dad was born in California. So what is that? That's my great-grandpa, great-great-grandma was born here. And I think maybe even goes back one more generation. They were from Portugal originally, but they came over early. And then God, on my dad's side, they are from Texas, and they go back like to the 1820s. So I'm not sure I qualify as a native daughter of the Golden West, but I don't know. I was born in California. My mom was born in California. My grandma was born in California. It goes back. By golly, if they let me in, I'll help them clean up this cemetery. Anyway, back to the search for Donner graves. As I'm walking along here, I did learn something interesting today when I was researching this, or reading about it, about the name Calistoga. It comes from, there's famous hot springs in New York State called Saratoga Springs. And one of the early settlers who was trying to promote this area was giving a speech, and he was trying to make this the Saratoga Springs of California. But I guess he misspoke, stumbled over his words in the speech. He said, "I'm trying to make this the Calistoga Springs of California." Instead of the Saratoga Springs of California, he said the Calistoga Springs of California. Now, first of all, my name is Sarah, so I think California is a great name. But hey, it's pretty cool that that's how Calistoga came to get its name. It's completely made up. I guess don't you call that a spoonerism? Okay, there's some pretty old looking graves here. And actually, it looks to me like the name on this is, oh man, I got all excited. I thought it said Gabriel Donner, but it says Gabriel Connor. Oh, so close. Well, gosh, I feel like I pretty much walked around this whole cemetery and I haven't seen Graves, that was her name. I thought that one of the Donner Party members' name was a Graves family and their daughter Sarah. I read a kind of like fictionalized account of the Donner Party that was sort of told from her perspective. And I feel like the guy who wrote it, the beginning of the book, he stopped at the cemetery to visit her grave. But I didn't see, I suppose she married, and her last name wasn't Graves anymore. So her name would have been Sarah, and she would have been born sometime in like the 1820s. I didn't see any such grave. It's funny that it's ironic that the name I couldn't remember is Graves when I'm surrounded by graves. Anyway, I think I'm gonna have to break down and cheat and do a little Googling. Okay, I did some research, and boy, am I glad I did. I found out some pretty interesting stuff. First of all, I was right. This one that I was looking at earlier, what I thought was Lovina Cyrus, remember the one that she hath done what she could? Well, first of all, it's pronounced Lovina Cyrus, and secondly, she was in the Donner Party. She was in the Graves family that I was talking about earlier. What I thought Sarah Graves was buried here, but apparently she isn't. But her sister, Lavina, is. And what's more, her husband, who I think is probably buried right by her here. Yeah, this guy here. John Cyrus, her husband, he was in the same wagon train as Lavina. I think he was 15 and she was 13 when they set off at the beginning of the journey back in like Missouri, or I guess Illinois, technically. They were from Illinois. Anyway, I guess he was already kind of sweet on her and they already kind of had a thing going. But those wagon trains, I don't know if you watched my videos or if you remember this or have read about this, these wagon trains could be like hundreds of wagons long and they would get spread out because some families were faster than others. And so even though you were technically in the same wagon train, you could be miles and miles apart and not see each other for weeks or even months at a time. And what's more, apparently, John was in the part of the wagon train that was at the forefront. Maybe they didn't end up taking the Hastings cut off, or I'm not sure, whatever the case. He ended up making it over the Sierras in time. He didn't get stuck in the mountains in the winter like poor Lavina did. So he actually made it to safety before the snow. And then, of course, when he heard that his true love Lavina was trapped up in their mountains, he volunteered to be a part of the first rescue effort. And I don't know if he was personally responsible. Well, first of all, I don't know if he actually even reached the Donner camp up there because, well, there was a lot of rescue attempts made, but the snow was so deep that a lot of them got turned back. But even if he did make it up there, I'm not sure if he was able to help her down or what. But hey, long story short, she did make it down. They did get married, and looks like they had a pretty long, happy life together. Died in 1891, the guy. When did she die? Oh, she didn't die till 1906. So they did. They had a long, presumably happy life together. That's nice that there's at least one happy ending to come out of that miserable story. Okay, and then there's also supposed to be one of Lovina's sisters, Eleanor Graves McDonald. She married into the McDonald family. She's supposed to be buried right around here somewhere, but gosh, I don't see, or I can't find any grave with her name on it. I mean, there's this grave here, which this looks like it was probably her husband, maybe M.M. McDonald, because it looks like he was in the Mexican War. But gosh, it beats me because there's no gravestone next to his. I mean, there's like a rock next to his, but surely his wife, having been in the friggin' Donner Party, was a notable enough person to get a headstone, not just a rock. I mean, that's just nuts to me that her descendants wouldn't come here and like do something for her. I mean, gosh, when you think of all that friggin' poor woman did to get here and, well, marry into some family that got land and, well, probably ended up pretty well off to this day. You know, it seems a little bit, well, it seems a little ungrateful on the part of her great-great-great-grandchildren, if you ask me. I mean, if I had an ancestor that was in the Donner Party and I knew they were buried someplace that I could get to, I would for sure at least go up there once a year and like clean up the grave or something. At the very least, I'd make sure there was a friggin' headstone. Okay, and one other interesting thing I learned randomly while looking up those Donner graves is something interesting about this grave that we already visited. Susan Reed Boyce. I think I said you go Sue or something like that. Well, guess what? Sue here was actually proposed to by Abraham Lincoln. The President Lincoln, you know, Abraham Lincoln was the 16th president. That Abraham Lincoln, you know, old log fence rail splitting Abe, old reading by candlelight in his log cabin Abe. Well, apparently they were both from Kentucky originally, and I guess he was friends with her dad, and I guess he asked her dad for her hand in marriage, and she said no. Well, look where she ended up. Calistoga, I suppose it could be worse. I mean, maybe it actually worked out for the best for her because, well, she would have had to go through everything that poor Mary Todd Lincoln went through. Either way, it's just funny to think about the decisions we make in life and, well, how they impact the paths, the journeys our lives take, you know? She would have never ended up in California if she'd married Abe Lincoln. Isn't that funny? Anyway, I guess I better get back in my car and continue on my way to my friend's place because, well, he's having knee surgery tomorrow morning at 5:30 in the morning. And I have to get up and take him to the hospital, so I only have another couple hours to drive. So this was definitely worth stopping at. Really cool cemetery, and if you're ever in Calistoga, Napa Valley, it's right by the wine country, all them wineries. It makes a really cool place to stop and just take a little walk. And hey, if you have an extra bottle of wine from all the wineries, you can leave it on that one lady's grave. Anna. She'll appreciate it.